Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this postgraduate support group meeting on, what's today? Tuesday,
Tuesday.
the 5th of September. And today we are welcoming Lewin Moodley back with us. This is the third session that she'll be hosting this year. Previously, we'd had emotional intelligence discussions, effective communication, and today we'll be exploring the fascinating topics of adopting a growth mindset. I privately told Lewin previously, I mean, there have been a couple of changes in my professional world right now, and this particular session is absolutely up my alley. So I'm going to sit nicely here and take a whole load of notes, and I'm pretty sure I'm not going to be alone. This is a very common topic, and we all will benefit so much from Lewin's wisdom. For those of you who don't know, who actually, you know what, I'm not going to introduce Lewin. She hates to do that. So I'll give her an opportunity to let you know all about the amazing achievements that has her year today, sharing her wisdom from the financial. There I go again. Rather, let Lewin introduce herself. Let me just start off with a quick reminder of our very casual house rules. We are a very interactive, supportive community, so please feel free to raise your hand if you'd like to ask a question or pose a comment, or please use the chat box to write your comments down or share your emoticons to express whatever feeling or emotion that you're having during any bit of the content. Um, and that's it. Interaction. We are here to learn from each other, learn with each other uh, during this postgraduate experience. So, welcome, Lewin Moodley. I'm going to get my notebook here. Thank you again for joining us today for this session on adopting a growth mindset.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I'm enjoying the energy. Very lively on a Tuesday. Yeah, so today's session is going to be about adopting a growth mindset. It is probably my favorite workshop. I don't want to speak too much about myself, but I have been in learning and development for over 10 years. I think that's all you need to know. And my favorites when it comes to learning and development are these soft skills workshops, because I find that we learn so much, and it's really important tools that we pick up and that we can keep with us when we find ourselves in challenging situations, especially now when we find ourselves, I think, nearing the last quarter of the year, and we need that extra push and extra fuel to navigate and to find the energy to push through not only to the remainder of the year, but continue on to the next couple of years and so on. Adopting a growth mindset equips you with a lot of tools, and I hope that I'll be able to pass that on or over to you today. All right. So yes, as mentioned, please feel free to use the emoticons. I will pose a question or two, so feel free to respond in the chat box. It is really difficult to facilitate with black screens. So when I can get a comment in the chat box, that would be great. Or even a question. Feel free. All right. So moving on. With these sessions, I always like to just give some context or a foundation in terms of the topic. And of course, it's adopting growth mindset. So, a renowned psychologist, Carol Dweck, is known for her work in mindsets and believe at the most basic level, we adopt one of two mindsets. I do want to mention that you may see me looking to what which is my left. That's because I'm working with two screens and my presentation is on the left screen. So I am looking from time to the left. In any event, Carol Dweck believes that there are, at the most basic level, we adopt one of two mindsets, one being the fixed mindset and the other being growth mindset. And I will explain both. So, a growth mindset is a characteristic of a person who believes that you can develop your ability. So, what that means is you believe that with time and effort, you are able to train or equip yourself to achieve whatever activity it is that you would like to do. Whereas with a fixed mindset, Your belief is that either you have the ability or you don't have the ability. It's not something that can be trained. It's something that you just have it or you don't. So you would say things like, I've never been a math person. That's just not me. Or I've never been into sports. That is something that my brother's really good at. Not me. I'm more academic, for example. So that is a fixed mindset. You believe you have the ability or you don't. Whereas a growth mindset believes that with time and effort or time and practice will equate to the results. You'll be able to develop that ability. So I just want to showcase a bit about the differences between the two. So with a fixed mindset, you are more likely to avoid challenges, to avoid failure. You view feedback as personal criticism, and you may give up easily. So that's a fixed mindset. A growth mindset, as I mentioned, is belief that you can be good at anything with dedicated practice. So it's essentially just time and effort, and it will equate to the results that you searching for, or that whatever it is you want to achieve. So before I move on, I just want to pause for a moment. In the chat box, I want you to just reflect on what I mentioned now, and I'd like you to tell me which mindset do you believe that you adopt, whether it's the fixed mindset or the growth mindset. So I've been running these sessions for a while, and I get the response, I think I'm both. So I want you to think about it. It can't be both. You have to choose one, and I'll tell you why you think it's both. You may think it's both because you feel that in certain circumstances, you may choose to take on the challenge, where in other scenarios, you may not. And the difference between the two is that the reason why you may take on certain challenges is because there's a belief there that you are able to do it. That's still a fixed mindset. So just take some time and reflect on which mindset you believe that you adopt, and just put it in the chat. Are there people in the session today?
There's loads of people in the session. Whoop, whoop. Could I answer? I take forever to type. Oh, I'd like to think that I adopt a growth mindset, but I find myself having to keep working on it, to like kick this fixed mindset out of the equation. But that's me.
So you said that you a fixed mindset, sorry.
I don't want to say that because I want to adopt a growth mindset. But there are times where I find myself saying, "No, man, this isn't me," and or somebody else could be better at this. And I mean, I understand there's a bit of the imposter syndrome that's filtering in there, but check.
There's like so many angles, so many ways to look at
No.
it.
Okay, so yeah, I'd like to say that I'm adopting a growth mindset.
I mean, similarly for me as well, I would like to think that I adopt a growth mindset, but I too have scenarios where I may not take on the challenge, but through this workshop, I'm aware there's an awareness of it, so I try to um, push myself and to apply the principles and the tools that I've learned during this. All right, I think I adopt a growth mindset, but I do think there's some limits. I have ADD, so working on organization is a way more challenging for me than it might be for someone else. I need to also set realistic goals for myself and accept those limits. That's absolutely correct. And I think when we go through this workshop, I think the starting point, and I always say this, the starting point is the belief. You need to have belief that whatever it is that you want to achieve, that it's possible. And I think that our starting point is generally, I can't do this. This is not for me. I don't have that ability. That is generally our starting point. But if we're starting with the belief that we are able to achieve something, then we're heading in the right direction, and we can start plugging in the other practices that we need to do in order to achieve those goals. Because at the end of the day, there is some sort of self-fulfilling prophecy at play here. If you believe you have the ability, if you believe your ability can improve, you will engage in activities which make it so. So if you believe that it's possible for you to improve on whichever activity it is you want to improve on, you will ensure that you implement certain strategies to equip yourself adequately. For example, if you feel that you try a new sport and starting out, you can see you're not too good at it. But if you believe that you have the ability and that you would be better at it, you would start increasing the amount of time you practice on this activity. You would do it more frequently. And I want to give you, and at the end of the day, with practice, you will find that you improve on that activity incrementally. And I have millions and millions of examples, and I like telling the story. Um, some of you may have heard this before, so forgive me. But when I was really young, I used to do gymnastics. I think I was very good at it. And when I started out and entering in competitions, we had a provincial or national tournament where I had to represent Western Province, or yeah, our province, which is Western Province. And that year I didn't do too well. I think I came seventh, which is not bad. And for the Western Province team, I was first. But then we had this one girl, and I mean, we were young, I was in primary school, who came last. Not only last for Western Province, but she came, shame. She was last nationally, and it was really bad. And yeah, that was her score was the worst for the tournament. And the next year came around. Obviously, 12 months had gone by. We prepared, we gone through trials, we made the team, and we're doing the second, or what I felt was the second tournament. And that year, I actually improved and I did much better. Yeah, I should actually remind myself of that part that I also did a bit better. But that year, the second year, I came second. And what was very interesting for me, and the first time where I saw sort of how your thoughts can navigate your end goal, is that while I came second to the same girl who came dead last the previous year. So that was an amazing achievement, and it showcased to me that if you're passionate about something and if you have belief in yourself, you will sort of focus on it and harness that skill that you have, and you will see the results. Some of you, and I like witnessing this, but bakers, if you've ever witnessed somebody who started out baking, sharing their photos on Facebook and Instagram, you can, if you see where they start in the beginning, I mean, it's okay. Some are really bad, not really good. But if you watch their journey, because you know that they're still applying that same passion and the same care and effort into this sort of activity that they enjoy doing, you witness that growth and the development, whether it's a few weeks, whether it's a few months, to where I'm sure that they're also surprising themselves. And that's exactly what adopting a growth mindset is all about. It's about your view and your perspective and your belief on something, where you will apply energy on something knowing that it has the potential to improve. But when you're coming from a point where you don't think you have the ability for it to improve, you're not going to apply any more energy on that activity, and you will remain in that position wherever you started. So it's really a matter of starting at what your belief is and how much you believe in this activity, that you need to do, and then start navigating your way forward in terms of applying time and energy in this activity in order to improve the outcome. I have so many other examples, but I will keep that for the remainder of the session. And I want to play this. video. Okay, I hope you can hear.
Not so long ago, many scientists believed that the brain did not change after childhood, that it was hardwired and fixed by the time we became adults. But recent advances in only the last decade now tell us that this is simply not true. The brain can and does change throughout our lives. It is adaptable, like plastic. Hence, neuroscientists call this neuroplasticity. How does neuroplasticity work? If you think of your brain as a dynamic, connected power grid, there are billions of pathways or roads lighting up every time you think, feel, or do something. Some of these roads are well travelled. These are our habits, our established ways of thinking, feeling, and doing. Every time we think in a certain way, practice a particular task, or feel a specific emotion, we strengthen this road. It becomes easier for our brains to travel this pathway. Say we think about something differently, learn a new task, or choose a different emotion. We start carving out a new road. If we keep travelling that road, our brains begin to use this pathway more, and this new way of thinking, feeling, or doing becomes second nature. The old pathway gets used less and weakens. This process of rewiring your brain by forming new connections and weakening old ones is neuroplasticity in action. The good news is that we all have the ability to learn and change by rewiring our brains. If you have ever changed a bad habit or thought about something differently, you have carved a new pathway in your brain and experienced neuroplasticity firsthand. With repeated and directed attention towards your desired change, you can rewire your brain.
Neuroplasticity. So essentially, this is about rewiring your brain or training your brain. A good example of this is learning how to drive. Initially, in the beginning, there's so many steps that you need to do in order to drive. It's, okay, I don't drive a manual anymore, but it's, changing gears or using I don't even know what it's called anymore. I don't drive manual. What is it? The clutch? Is that what it's called? The clutch or whatever, and then doing the K53, the observations that you need to do. But there's so many steps that you need to do when it feels impossible. But with continuous practice and doing it each day, I'm sure for those of you who are drivers, you're at a point where you do it subconsciously. You're not even thinking about it anymore. That's exactly what's happening with rewiring your brain or training your brain. That's what you need to do. Again, it's starting with the belief, but then it's the consistency. It's about doing it over and over and over so that it becomes second nature. I always say, I try to explain it this way. When you're starting something new, there's an uncomfortable feeling that you have. That uncomfortable feeling that makes you sort of feel inadequate. Because especially, I think for people who are in a new role, because it's completely foreign. Some of you may even feel like you're in the wrong field, you don't know anything, you feel sort of useless. That's the beginning stage of anything new. And when most of us are placed in that situation, we don't enjoy that uncomfortable feeling. And most of us may stop. We will make an excuse, or what's the word I'm looking for? Sort of validate the reason why we shouldn't continue. And we will tell ourselves that it's okay to stop. So we will say things like, this is not for me. I'm better skilled at something else. I'm not good at this. Those are the thoughts that we will tell ourselves in order to make it okay for us to stop doing it. But what we need to do is have an understanding that this is a temporary feeling. And the only way we're going to push past this or feel better is by consistently engaging in the activity that we dislike. An example that is probably familiar with some of you is when you have to conduct a presentation. So that feeling at the beginning, or the anxiety you may feel, it's because it's uncomfortable. And most of you will say that it's not for me. I'm not a public speaker. I'm not good at it. But the fact of the matter is you're uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable in that position because you don't do it often. And the only way you're going to feel better and bridge that feeling is by engaging in it more often. So whatever it is that you want to achieve, that's where you feel you're not good at it and it's giving you an uncomfortable feeling. Your solution is to push yourself closer to this activity. That's your solution. You have to do it more often. And a good example for me, or scenario for me, was actually doing these sessions. I know the first session that I did, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, I can't even remember. Um, started with emotional intelligence. And I mean, it will probably be very embarrassing for me if I have to rewatch that video. But you could, well, I would be able to pick up the nerves and how I fumbled over certain things and where I made mistakes. But it's because I was extremely nervous and probably very uncomfortable. Now I'm at a point, I can't say that the nerves are completely gone. It will always be there, probably, which is still good, because that means for me that I want to do well. I want it to be productive and engaging for everyone. But it's a lot better. I'm more comfortable. And the only way I was able to achieve this is by doing it more frequently and doing it more often. I remember when I started driving, and I hated driving. It was really bad. I would have, like, after I got from point A to B, I would have be like sweating on my back because of how how nervous I was. And people would always tell me, "Oh, Lou, you simply need to just do it a bit more. That's why you'll get better." And I did not accept that as a reason. I would try and explain that you don't understand what's happening in my mind. It is, it's some, I don't know, I think I said some genetic issue I have, which gives me the anxiety. But that was me making an excuse and making it okay for me to not try, for me to not move closer to doing it more often. And at the end of the day, I was forced in a situation where I had to do it more frequently, because I had to take my daughter to school, and it was a little bit further away than the around the corner preschool she was at. And that allowed me to improve and gain more confidence to a point where now, again, I'm not thinking about it as much anymore. So that is always going to be your solution. Yes.
Can I say something, please? I can't find the raise hand button here on this computer. But I do want to say that, I witnessed that, this terror in having to drive your car. But what you did was actually, you you stopped with the excuses and you started
Yes.
out slowly, and it took some time. You There was a time where you would only make left turns because it was easier. You would plot your route so that you could get to where you need to go by only making left turns. I mean, it was a strategy, and it got you more comfortable doing it. It took some time, and that's where the discomfort came from. But you
Uh,
were willing to do that in order to get what you wanted, and it's wonderful. Sorry,
Absolutely, and thanks for that. And I think what's important to also reflect on is that sometimes scenarios may push us in that predicament where we have to or we're forced to engage in an activity that we dislike. But through adopting the growth mindset, this is sort of giving you the tools for you to do that on your own, when it's something that you want to achieve. And when I train this topic with our staff, the question I always ask them is, which part of your day or which task do you dislike the most? Which task are you avoiding? do you avoid it for as long as possible, where you have to, where it gets to a point where you have no other choice and now you have to do it? That is the task that you need to engage in more or do more frequently. With our staff, for example, that task is the complex tasks. It's complex because you're not doing it enough. You need to remove the power that this task has. And the only way you're going to do that is by doing it more frequently. I hope that makes sense. All right. So when it comes to learning something new, You sort of have to define your pathway from point A to point B. So if you're standing at point A and you know whatever it is you want to achieve is on the other side, you need to create and strengthen the neural pathway. When you're first learning, you still need to figure out the mechanics from point A to point B. So this is the beginning phase, right? So as you start learning the mechanic of your new activity, you can create a trail from point A to point B. So now you're sort of figuring out, okay, how is this done? Then spending more time and energy on it, you have a clearer pathway in terms of what it is you need to do, but have not yet quite perfected the technique. Right? In order to improve, you need to refine and strengthen the techniques by spending more time and effort on it. This will gradually widen the path, making the task easier to perform. Eventually, the pathway gets stronger and wider with more time spent on it, that eventually you don't have to think about it as much to excel in it anymore. It almost becomes second nature. And that's sort of the driving scenario that I gave earlier. Yeah. The bottom line is that in order for something to be less uncomfortable or for something to get easier, you have to focus on spending more time at it. As it stands for us fixed mindset people, we create excuses when we find it challenging to do a certain task at the beginning. And the excuses are things like, this is not for me, I don't have that ability, I find this challenging. And the important part here is that you need to have this awareness, knowing that that's a fixed mindset that you are hearing, and you sort of need to change that fixed mindset. So what I mean is you will hear the fixed mindset voice, but you need to respond in a growth mindset. Yes.
I found the raise hand icon. um, um, I'm reflecting on what you're saying right now, and I realize that in my experience, sometimes it's useful to lean on the support of others in order to help you get out of that mindset. Um, I could tell from personal experience. I just started working with a new group of people who are very involved in data analysis techniques that I have never experienced before. So I'm learning this lingo slowly, well, being overwhelmed by this lingo very quickly. And it could be very easy to say, oh, no, sorry, can't do this. I made the wrong decision. It's time to go back. Um, or instead seek assistance from people who are willing to support you through that journey, to help you get out of that fixed mindset, to help you take bite-sized pieces to move from A to B. And that's wonderful, finding a community to assist you to grow.
Absolutely. And I find that whenever somebody is starting something new, for some weird reason, we all believe that we need to immediately be a professional, an expert in this new task. And that's not the case. So we don't really allow ourselves the opportunity to learn or to be new to it, to be at the beginner level. And because we have this belief that we need to be a professional or an expert, we don't allow ourselves to ask the question. So we will be quiet. We will try and hide the fact that we don't know this thing and hope that nobody will pick up that we don't know. But it's okay. We're allowed to not know because we're learning something new, and these are the steps that you take to get better at it. So I do find that when you start asking questions and you express how you're feeling, where you say things like, I find this challenging, I didn't know how you could do that, or whatever the case may be, or this is overwhelming, you'll find that there are more people that are feeling the same way, and that makes you feel better and makes you feel like it's okay to ask these questions. Okay, but as I was saying, that the important part is that we need to be aware of how we are sort of derailing our progress, and what are some of the things that we will tell ourselves to hinder that development. So Awareness is key. So we need to learn. You need to learn to hear your fixed mindset voice. Right. So previously, when I done this session with you guys, I thought I'll just give a snapshot. And I asked everyone the question, what are some of the things that your inner critic will tell you? So some of the things that came up in the previous session was, I'm not good enough, poor time management, they won't like you, I'm stupid, don't bother, you're not smart, overworking, eat too much, you're going to fail again, they won't like it, poor organization, you're not good enough, late attendance. So for the next 2 minutes, I'm going to just add a new slide quickly. I would like you to think about and capture on Mentimeter what are some of the things that that your inner critic will tell you. So if you look on the screen, it says go to menti.com and use the code 25511831. I think that information or the code may be placed in the chat right now. But just go to that website, menti.com. You capture that code, or you can click on the link and maybe quicker. And I want you to capture, it's anonymous, so nobody will know who wrote that. But in any event, I want you to just capture some of the things that your inner critic will tell you. Elliot, that's a perfect example of adopting a growth mindset. Just give it a few minutes. So as the information comes in, I'll just start reading. I wish I had more time. This is not good enough. I'm overwhelmed. I'm not good enough. You don't have time. Lazy. I'm not good enough. Yeah, they should have made that one bigger. It's difficult. Didn't work hard enough. You're a fraud. You're not good enough. You can. That's nice. I can't do this. Are you sure you can? You have to sacrifice. My mind is wired for. This is draining my energy. Always late, complicated. I cannot do this. That's excessive. I mean, it's true. These are the things that we tell ourselves. And even if I look at the previous screen, it's really quite harsh. And the question I asked in the previous session is if you have a look at all these things, so I want you to understand that these are the things that we are telling ourselves before we attempting something that we find challenging. And the question is, would you speak to a colleague like this? if a colleague was attempting something, are these some of the things that you would tell them? Another scenario is, or another question is this what you would, how you would speak to a child, your child, any child? And I know that if not all of you will say you wouldn't. So then the question is, why are we speaking to ourselves like this? So what we need to do is, even if we are telling ourselves these things, which is really not good and it's extremely unproductive, it's difficult to overcome these thoughts or overcome or engage in activity if this is the starting point. So what we need to do is understand that this is the fixed mindset. This is your inner critic. So you hear the fixed mindset, but you respond in the growth mindset. And I'm going to give you some suggestions on how you can do that. So I'm just going to move this. Okay. Right. So as I mentioned, hear the fixed mindset voice, but respond with a growth mindset. Growth mindset. How you interpret setbacks, challenges, failure is your choice. Okay. So here's some scenarios, and I think you'll get the gist of it. So if, for example, for all the people who said, I can't do this, you can change that to, what do I need to do to be able to do this? So at that moment, it may feel like you can't do this. But remember, that's that uncomfortable feeling. You knew at it. You're not expected to be an expert. So the question is, what can I do to improve on how I'm on the activity that I want to do? Another one is, I'm not good at it. Again, we expect ourselves to be an expert, but I'm still learning how to do this. We can't be an expert right in the beginning. We're still learning. We're still forming that pathway for ourselves. And finally, I hate doing this. I find this challenging. So most of the time, we dislike activities that we believe we're not good at it. We're not good at. So again, it's challenging now. It doesn't mean it's going to be challenging forever. The way we can change that is by doing it more frequently. So all roads lead to starting with belief, knowing that you're just starting something new. You're not expected to be a pro at it, but having the belief that with time and practice and efforts, you can improve on whatever this activity is. And again, consistency. I think they said it takes 21 days to build or to remove a habit. So let's say we're building good habits. So that consistency is forming the habit so that you can move closer towards the goal that you want to achieve. I'm going to play this clip. I'm very mindful of the words that I use here, but it's not my favorite. I think you'll see why. But just bear with it. Let's just follow. I think that's also really nice. Small choices become actions, actions become habits, and habits become our way of life, which is all very true and very important. I think that, again, whatever it is that you're hoping to achieve, it's about making the choice um, to engage in those activities to strengthen whatever it is you want to achieve. There's this saying that says, "How did you go bankrupt?" So it says 2 ways, gradually, then suddenly. So what that means is that if you do something gradually, it's going to lead you somewhere. So for example, if you are gradually opting or choosing to take a run maybe every second day, you'll find that you'll strengthen like a jog, with the hope that wanting maybe to complete a 5K run, which is where I'm at the moment. You'll find that I'll suddenly get to a point where I'm able to achieve that. If, for example, you find yourself gradually spending a little bit of money here, a little bit of money there, that's how you sort of get bankrupt, from gradually to suddenly. So whatever you are gradually exposing yourself to will meet your suddenly one day. You need to make the right choices in order to reach those goals. And there's something that I've learned. What's important as well is that point one is understanding what your goals are, having the belief that you can achieve them, right? But your focus needs to be on building the habits, the good habits. And that's the consistency, the repetition, focusing on ensuring that you're doing it regularly in order to meet your goal. Most of us just focus on the goal. The goal is your beacon. It's what's going to keep that motivation going, but your focus needs to be on the regular activities and the consistency, the repetition. That's what's going to lead you to your goal. I hope that makes sense. All right, so your best self. So what I'd like to do is I want to give you 2 minutes, just 2 minutes, where I want you to reflect on items in your life that you feel you would like to improve. So interrogate your current life to identify where the challenges may be, or where there are components where you would like to sort of change it or improve it. Yeah, and you need to be honest. You're not going to answer this for me. This is simply for you. So in this next 2 minutes, I'm going to give you the time just to reflect. And you can jot a couple of things down that's weighing you down or making you unhappy. Could be, for example, your job. Um, it could be maybe you want to be a little bit more healthier. Maybe you want to take up a new activity. Whatever it is, you can think about it. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to reflect on that and just jot it down for yourself. right. Is it? There we go. Whenever I do this activity, they always say, that's not enough time, Lewin, we need more time. There's a lot to fix. Okay, so now you sort of have a few items that you would like to enhance. But for this activity, I sort of want you to just focus or highlight one of them, or just think about one of the areas that you'd like to focus on, maybe for the next few months till the end of the year. And I want you to think about one of those items. Let's say, for example, you were hoping to get a new job, a new role within whatever organization you're in. So, a new role. What I'd like you to do, I'm going to give you another 2 minutes, but I want you to visualize it. I want you to visualize what that would look like for you. You need to picture it. So, for example, in the next 2 minutes, you would visualize yourself walking in the morning. What are you wearing? Who do you see? What does it smell like? What does that world look like? You need to visualize that because, as I mentioned, the most important part here is belief. So I need you to experience and to visualize and to feel what it would feel like to achieve your goal. All right, I'm going to play that 2 minutes for you. Just choose one, okay? All right, so just quickly bringing you back. I'm pressing the wrong button. Okay. All right. So as I mentioned earlier, big component is your belief. Visualizing that gives you your goal. It allows you to see what it is that what you're working for and what you're moving towards, what are you hoping to achieve. It's important for you to visualize it and to sort of experience it. But as I mentioned earlier, the neuroplasticity, we now need to formulate that pathway. And how we do that, when I spoke about moving from point A to point B, is your consistency and the repetition. So if, for example, you want to eat more healthily, it's about making that consistent choice to choose A rather than B, for example. And if, for example, you want to enhance your presentation skills, it means that you need to give yourself the opportunity to practice that. You need to do more presentations. You need to create those opportunities. So you sort of need to set those milestones for yourself that will form that pathway from where you are now, which is point A, to the point B where you want to get to. And you need to have that goal, have the belief, but then plug in that repetition and the building of the good habits in order to reach your goals. very important. It's good to have your goal, but you need to focus on the activities which allows you to reach it. All right, so this is the final little clip that I'm going to play for you. It's one of my favorites, and it was done by Jim Carrey at a graduation ceremony.
You can spend your whole life imagining ghosts, worrying about the pathway to the future, but all there will ever be is what's happening here, and the decisions we make in this moment, which are based in either love or fear. So many of us choose our path out of fear disguised as practicality. What we really want seems impossibly out of reach and ridiculous to expect, so we never dare to ask the universe for it. I'm saying I'm the proof that you can ask the universe for it. Please. I can tell you from experience, the effect you have on others is the most valuable currency there is. My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love. That peace that we're after lies somewhere beyond personality. Your need for acceptance can make you invisible in this world. Don't let anything stand in the way of the light that shines through this form. Risk being seen in all of your glory. As far as I can tell, it's just about letting the universe know what you want and working toward it while letting go of how it comes to pass. And when I say life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, I really don't know if that's true. I'm just making a conscious choice to perceive challenges as something beneficial so that I can deal with them in the most productive way. You'll come up with your own style. That's part of the fun. Like many of you, I was concerned about going out into the world and doing something bigger than myself, until someone smarter than myself made me realize that there is nothing bigger than myself. You are ready and able to do beautiful things in this world. And after you walk through those doors today, you will only ever have two choices: love or fear. Choose love, and don't ever let fear turn you against your playful heart. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ugo. I'm so honored. Thank you.
That was a very powerful speech and many gems, golden nuggets in that speech. But yeah, we've pretty much come to the end of the session. I hope that there was something you can take away. Just remember that it starts with you believing that you have the ability to achieve it, and it's simply just a matter of time and effort, and you will reach your results, your goals. But that's it from me. Are there any questions?
That was wonderful. Half choked up here. The power of belief and then consistency. I don't know about anybody else in this community. I think the consistency is always an issue. I think for me, I mean, I look at my New Year's resolutions. You want to do better. You want to eat well. You want to apply for the new job or engage in your project better. And you make all these plans and you change your agenda to make sure that this is going to happen, and then the energy starts waning and next thing you know, you're not ticking off those things off your to-do list and that. But how do we get out of that? No, I mean, how? Help me.
So yeah, for me, it's holding on to that vision, number one, because that's what you're after. So that activity of experiencing and feeling it, that's what you're holding on to, because that's where you want to be, right? But then being aware of what you're telling yourself in that moment, because a lot of the times what we're doing is we're permitting ourselves to slack off, essentially. So if, for example, we are trying to be more healthy, we will permit ourselves, it's just one cupcake. It's just one biscuit. It's just one. So we will, are you still there? I think you're a bit frozen. You may be, but it's about being aware of how we're permitting ourselves in the moment and focusing on the consistency and the habits that we need to build in order to reach our goal. I hope it answers your question. It's not easy to do, but we need to train our brain.
I'm going to rewatch this a couple of times, since it's recorded. We have 2 minutes or so. If there's anybody who has any questions or comments, anything they'd like to share with the community or ask Lewin, by all means, use the chat box or raise your hands. So we've got quite a few thank yous in the chat box, Lewin. Clearly the content has really resonated with the group. We all want to promote this growth mindset mindset within our community. Right. I don't see any questions. If you'd like, you can send me an email, and I can pass it on to Lewin as well. Next week, Lewin, thank you very much for being with us today. Your content ties in quite nicely with our next session next week, where we discuss coping in this funding landscape. And if you've ever written a grant or ever asked an institution for money to fund you or to fund your ideas, this adopting a growth mindset and this concept of resilience as well is quite important, and it speaks quite nicely to this session. So welcome. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I look forward to seeing you in our next session on the 12th of September, where we discuss tips and tricks for coping within your funding landscape. Thank you for your participation in this group, and we'll see you next week. Thank you, Lewin. Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.